Most Appium setups work fine on day 1. By week 2, the tests are flaky. By month 1, half the team has stopped trusting them. This is not an Appium problem. It is a test design problem. The way you locate elements, structure your test code, and handle timing makes the difference between a test suite that is an asset and one that is a liability. In this episode, we are going beyond the basics. Locator strategies that do not break with every UI update. The page object model applied to mobile. Handling weights properly so your tests stop failing for no reason. And getting Appium tests running in a real CI pipeline. If you watched the last episode and got your first test running, this is the next step. The most common reason Appium tests break is brittle locators. Let's fix that. You have several strategies available. XPath is the most flexible but also the most fragile. A path like //android.widget.button_2 depends on the exact position of that element in the UI tree. Any layout change breaks it. Accessibility ID is far more stable. It maps to the content description on Android and the accessibility identifier on iOS. When your development team sets these consistently, your tests become resilient to layout changes because you are finding elements by their purpose, not their position. Resource ID on Android, the element's actual ID attribute, is another strong option when it is available. These IDs tend to be stable across design changes. UI Automator on Android and predicate string on iOS give you even more power, letting you write expressive queries that combine multiple attributes. The practical rule: prefer accessibility ID first, fall back to resource ID, use XPath only as a last resort and never with positional indexes. And if your dev team is not setting accessibility labels, make that conversation happen. It improves both test stability and actual accessibility for real users with disabilities. The page object model is a design pattern that separates what your tests do from how the app works. This separation is what makes large test suites maintainable. Here is the idea. Instead of writing element locators and interactions directly in your test methods, you create a class for each screen in your app. That class owns the locators and the actions for that screen. Your tests call methods on the page object rather than talking to the driver directly. For example, a login page class would have a method called login that accepts username and password, finds the fields internally, types the values, and taps submit. Your test just calls login with the credentials and then checks the result. The benefit shows up when the UI changes. If the login button gets a new accessibility ID, you update it in one place, the login page class, and every test that uses it keeps working. Without this pattern, a single UI change can require touching dozens of test files. For mobile, apply the same pattern per screen. A home screen class, a product detail screen class, a checkout screen class. Each owns its own locators and actions. Tests become short, readable, and easy to maintain. Flaky tests are the #1 reason teams abandon their automation investment. Almost all mobile test flakiness comes from the same root cause: timing. Your test tells the driver to tap a button. The button has not appeared yet because the network request is still loading. The tap fails. The test fails. But if you had waited one more second, everything would have been fine. The wrong fix is to add sleep statements. Sleep of 3 seconds works until it does not, and it makes your entire suite slower for no benefit. The right fix is explicit waits. Appium gives you WebDriver wait combined with expected conditions. You tell the driver to wait up to a maximum timeout, say 10 seconds, until a specific condition is true. Element is visible. Element is clickable. Element text equals a specific value. As soon as the condition is met, execution continues. If the timeout expires without the condition being met, you get a clear error telling you exactly what was expected. Implicit waits set a default polling time globally but mix badly with explicit waits. Pick one approach and stick with it. Explicit waits per interaction give you the most control and the clearest failure messages. Getting Appium tests into CI is where the investment starts paying off continuously. Every pull request gets validated against real app behavior, not just unit tests. The core requirement is a running Appium server alongside your test runner. In a CI environment like GitHub Actions, you can use the Android emulator action to spin up an AVD and Android virtual device as part of your workflow. The emulator starts, Appium server starts, your tests run, results are reported. Your workflow file sets up Java, Android SDK, starts the emulator, waits for it to boot, installs your APK, starts Appium, then runs your test command. A few things that trip people up in CI. The emulator needs hardware acceleration enabled in the runner, which means you need a runner that supports it. GitHub's Ubuntu latest works. Boot time is slow, often 2 to 3 minutes, so your pipeline will be longer than local runs. For iOS and CI, you need a macOS runner with Xcode. The setup is similar but uses the iOS simulator instead. Once CI is green, you have a safety net. Regressions get caught before they reach users. You now have the full picture of professional Appium testing. Stable locators using accessibility IDs and resource IDs instead of brittle XPaths. The page object model to keep your test code maintainable as the app grows. Explicit waits that handle timing correctly without sleep statements. And a CI pipeline that runs your tests automatically on every change. This is the skill set that separates QA engineers who are viewed as blockers from those who are viewed as force multipliers. When your automation catches a regression before it hits production, that is real business value. Series 2 on mobile testing with Appium is complete. If you want more advanced gestures, parallel execution across devices, visual testing, let me know in the comments. Subscribe to QA Career Lab. New episodes every day. I will see you in the next one.